Om Mani Padme Hum. Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Sembrando damjinde ye je no mo ya la ye je dang lu dang de ji ge zhong da da me ge nam ne ro gen ji da ji ji dang ba tam ji ge de da ge chu den. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rinpoche.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
Tin da nga tu ni ma tin jam gong kong tu ke dan zi bi tin la mi jam bu da ka chang ke hyun sam tin ma shu yin.
So today we will continue from where we left off last week in this supplication calling the Lama from afar, composed by Jamgun Kondro.
Tin da ka chang hyun sam tin ma shu wi na da kun chen timi wa zen chen no pe che da ka chang hyu cha yu sa re sam da kun chen timi wa ze te pe che long chen ale wa kun chen timi wa zen chen no sa to to wo nge long ne sai hin ga da gong ba za chen zo ne na yin ta de chin pan zo ji wa da tin de je tang da de hyu de sa kun chen timi wa ze se ya de tin da je tang ga zo long chen ram jam ta ni me na la ma ge ta chen bo wa
So the verse that we picking up where we left off last week, we begin with the verse, omniscient Drime Uzer, think of me. Look upon me from the realm of the five natural wisdom lights. Help me perfect great skill in the originally pure mind and complete the four stages of Ati Yoga So this omniscient Drime Ozer is referring to the great Longchen Rabjam, the great famous Nyingma master.
对他接当等的那完他的那一他的情报消息，当我做等的做前去拿了的呢，就去年我送是呀娘接当娘囊空拍是呀，日本车票是他接当的呢
去年我送当
的呢娘囊空拍
公票
他娘囊的空拍路路，的呢日本车票。Cipena da cita leviada o gero cipena su riquati na so riquati. Tini lozi chuzi se ta tar zo khochimuk ko tato tala tini ji lozi chuzi lagdo lo len dewa so ta jetanga zo chaje chimbu gangla ta zongda mandong thoma chimbus. Tini ji ta dan ji tembe ki na nga so ji yu ni yu zom yu da tini jang jang yorwa. in loke 다셔죠. 니마지 때문에 지 통야 주는 봐. 로키 율인데와 런데 차자 전부 쓰리네. 지 로시 추시 쓰리네. 지 텐디들라데 다토 달라데 다 차자 전부 나도 조화 전부 나비나. 보다 달라. 아더니 맞다. 닝미기다 다토 쪽잖아. 너무히 다르지 뭐 정도가 되겠어.
So nangwaji tar chimba. The dampo de tuning unsum.
Ari,
Nangwataye.
Mari Chuni Ngosum.
Okay. So here, as what is being referred to here as the 4 stages of Ati Yoga is referring to the 4 appearances or the 4 stages, which are Chuni Ngunsum, or direct dharmata, the actualization of dharmata, and Nyamnyong or Nyamnang Gongpel. So the increase of inner experience, and Rikpat Sepep, which is like the culmination or the sort of the pinnacle of awareness, and Lodze Chudze. Lozi. So the total exhaustion of phenomena, the exhaustion of mind and the exhaustion of phenomena. Rebe. And so this is, of course, this is what we refer to in Mahamudra as, that which is completely beyond the intellect. So in the tradition of Mahamudra, we talk about seeing, the great seeing of non-seeing. Matong Tongwa Chimpo. So not seeing is the great seeing, meaning that this is completely beyond any possibility of like comprehension from the perspective of ordinary awareness. So from the perspective of ordinary confused awareness, we're constantly, breaking things up into categories. Like we designate one thing and then we designate another thing or 2 things in juxtaposition to one another, and so on and so forth. And so we're functioning from the perspective of dualistic grasping. But when one reaches this level of profound realization that truly directly sees and understands from the perspective of the ultimate view, whether it be in the context of Dzogchen or Mahamudra, then this is completely beyond the ordinary intellect, in which all sort of dualistic designations, all the appearances of the phenomenal world, eventually the final outcome of this is a total exhaustion within the Dharmata.
Tenda jitanga to lo si zung du kari lo mewa chang ya yo marwa. In lo si du karsina ta tenda chong de jitanga da dualistic conception. Tendi je ke tene ji ta ji lo le debi ki kyu pena cha na ji nyong mo ba rakpa ina de tawa ina de. Tendi je kale ko si no gu yore. Pena seya de setang de nga zo pena te sung do ji chula remote ba na yi sung du ji ngone nga zo number dog ba de mewa chando야 요 말티네 지 넘버 똑바디 지 상도 이나리 년도 뇽몽베 게 넘버 똑바지 지웅베 깔라 드네 지 람상 고지 메완 차도 예노야 봐 텔레진 zemban
공타 상토 가레 데라송
드네 베나 상복 똑바 이나리 녜베 똑바 이나리 베나 녜베 똑바 뇽바 요로와 어다 지 셈데라서 와 어터서디 지 추념래 야야 지웅베 깔라 되네 곧 직도마다 샤그래 나도 되네 테마카메와 차로 말와 이나야 고지 샤네 고 칼레 예로로와 베나차샤나 출을 모티와 나 예존이 고지 로트 바 신도에 따로게 땡겨래 이나가 ordinarily 가르치는 아주 세기면도 빼 징진바지 휴 달라베 드론 increasing 차그와 베나 뇽모바 해당으로 올라나 티줌젠도 해당라야 그 increasing 차야 야면은 어떤 사람들다 지고 해당으로 요래 현황이나야 현황을 배 increasing 제 어들 때는 차그레 제 제그레선다 텐딩도 그 카리나 뇽바 참마지 맞아 ordinarily increasing 차그요레스 이나 냠래 집이 공항에서 뭐 땅비나 근데 갈래 거지 로티지 근데 그 신도야도 그러봐 지 이해노야도 그러봐 넘버 똑같아 되게 용구요레스 되게 로지 추지세요 choose an object,
phenomena. So when we say like the exhaustion of mind, this isn't to be understood like as though, like mind, the activity of mind just completely ceases. Like, there's no longer any mind, as though it disappears. And in fact, also it should be stated that this word for mind here is lo, which is there are many different sort of and categories of mind in the Tibetan language, and lo is more connected with conceptual mind, or sort of like the intellect. And so what it is that it completely becomes exhausted is the mind of dualistic concepts, the mind of dualistic grasping. All of the coarse afflictive emotion, both the coarse and subtle afflictive emotions, gradually become completely exhausted. So they are no longer, there's no longer any trace of karmic imprint there. And so then it becomes like drawing pictures or patterns in the surface of the water, or on the surface of the water. So it isn't that there is nothing that arises, but the moment that something arises, it immediately dissolves, and it doesn't leave any trace. There's absolutely no grasping or fixation there. And this is the case for all concepts, both positive or wholesome concepts, as well as negative concepts. And so as experience deepens and practice, as one's realization becomes more and more developed, it isn't that that phenomena doesn't appear in the mind, or it isn't as though thoughts don't appear at all, but they have absolutely no sticking quality. So they appear and they immediately dissolve. So this is what is essentially being referred to with the exhaustion of mind and the exhaustion of phenomena. Because ordinarily, from the perspective of diluted awareness, then it's actually like the opposite. So something arises, and rather than instantaneous dissolution, there's a grabbing onto, there's a grasping onto, and then that grasping increases through proliferation. So for instance, we become angry, and then we grasp onto that anger, and which causes another concept supporting that anger to arise, which leads to another concept, and so on and so forth. And then there's this process of increasing that happens. The grasping increases, and likewise, in proportion to the grasping, the concepts increase, and then in proportion to the concepts, the grasping increases, and so in this way they feed one another. And so when one has reached this very high level of realization, then there is no increasing, there's no process of sort of the increasing of concepts or proliferation that occurs. It really, whatever it is that arises in the mind, also immediately and spontaneously dissolves upon arising. And this is what we refer to in the Dzogchen tradition as lodze chuze, or exhaustion of mind, exhaustion of phenomena. Rewa?
Dati hyugla, nyami chowo yabsin cheno, gandan laji wine sahi, oni nyingbo jenji, chansam ju la je wan zo je is. Ta nyami chowo yabse se ya, ta chowo je re, tene tepe, ta yabde, tepe se tepe chen rom dongpa jarbin jungne, rawa hota te chenos. Ta nga so chowo je ki namda zo mahambore ina ta ko, chowo zo chi na chowo je tepe nga so ta, polo pe masiwi ke gadi chenpo re tendu ta zo karsana nga zo da nyam namju jamdo nang shuwe wa jamdo nang ta jitang lalama yihi wu tang changcho wu sidi ta jitang
Lama yishi u dang changchube.
tendu tene da te chi Koranta ti yishi wu ti jarbo re tendu ta ti lurju mongbo yor tena jarbo yindu tene korang 다티디 무슬람 그세그와 거란지 같이 마치네 테네 제 파기라 종강남 쯔네 테네 거란게 타마데 지다 담가나 마소나 수험땡이로와 담가 수험땡도 다 담가디 다 저랑
Lula ser jitsi.
아마 텐드네 지 양면은 저랑 점로 동바트야 동부 요레스 양면은 저랑 게다 류키지나 이세티그레스 양면은 근데 지 저랑다 동한데나 헤그레스네 담가 좀 테이블에 텐드다 텐드 테네 이히오게 다들 어디인지 조이면 정도 이히오게 테네 지 갈종을 남나더니 단 얘기지
Te jangchibu le yorwa tene di tangpo ser mangpo tenda di
다때
kiri.
갖고서
Okay.
대인들이 다 간다 jambu domba 동면스 jambu domba 디 고지 카좀 동면스 다디 지금 소라 합 장한테네 코페다다 동부 마리스 랍테니 다 디제라 장저유 그런 페이지 꿈치 인사를 간다 되기는 세트니 키지 되네 야 그런 기진도 세라 요래 세라네 타만데 칼치고 쓰는 되네 다이 이히고 땅가 셀 디 지금하러 오지 진행의 상지 기tem발 승계 탐지 통들이 팬토 토고 말이스 야chen 보지 대인도 다 트레인세비아 키지 베날란타 야갈이야 로 되네 지금 라마 오네 타네 생이당 템바 테네지를 마 데네 휴비나 되네 지 마길다 갈세고지 조 로바지도 승계 탐지다 양고 사고도 있기 때문에 보면은 팬토 토고 레송지가 들렸대 되네 대치지나 기타 장초 우대 이게 우대 제다 동하나 히브리 이나야 장초 우대니 세르키 야래 송되네 다 반나디 해텐다 뭐니 지추 그런 생이 담된 바 그러 트리지 볼로 타리아 타리오리 스놈 다 조입세 삼
So then the next verse says, Incomparable Lord Atisha, Father and Son, think of me. Look upon me from amidst 100 devas in Tushita. Arouse in me, bodhicitta, the essence of emptiness and compassion. So here, as it refers to father and son, so this is maybe likely referring to the heart son, Atisha, and his heart son, Dromtomba. And then, of course, there are many stories that where you can read, about the life story of Atisha. There are many great stories there, but mainly Atisha is credited for his tremendous kindness in bringing the Dharma to Tibet. So because he came to Tibet, and through his great kindness, he was one of the principal figures throughout the history of Buddhism in Tibet, credited with really, the propagation of Buddha Dharma in general, throughout Tibet. So he was one of the major sources. And the story of how there's actually quite a lot regarding the story of how he came to Tibet. But in in the kind of history that details his arrival in Tibet, there's the story of the two brothers, Lama Yishe-u and Zhangchub-u. And so first, so Lama Yishe-u was a king at the time in Tibet, and he was captured by a region, like a non-Buddhist region, maybe it was a Muslim region, and who was waging war at that time in their region. And he was thrown in prison, and he was given three choices. They said to him, you can either reject your source of refuge. You can either give up your faith in the three jewels, or you can give us your body weight in gold, or you'll have to die here. We'll kill you here in prison, or you'll have to die here in prison. And so Lama Yeshiu said, of course, there's without any doubt, I will never give up my faith in the three jewels. I will never give up my source of, reliance on the three jewels as my sources of refuge. And also then his brother or relative, Jiang Jubu, came, they having caught wind of this or having heard of this situation, he went to great lengths to collect a lot of gold. Tene the go la you said what go di or di la go samarwa. Okay. And so he went to great lengths to collect a lot of gold, and he had almost the full amount.
The amount his weight, body weight.
And he went to find Yishiu and free him from prison. But then upon arriving, Yishiu said, there isn't any benefit in freeing me from prison. Then all of this gold will have been wasted. Much more productive or much better would be if you travel to India and find a great scholar there in the monastic universities to bring back to Tibet. So take this gold and use, put it to that purpose. And so in that way, then Zhang Chubu continued on from this area on to, he made the journey to India, and this was then the beginning of the process of actually bringing Atisha to Tibet.
Mm-hmm. This one. Mm-hmm. Okay. What that here Tibet they did tangoni chinichi chu de kona tamju ki nima harwa na yi keji ta nyama ro chu yo ta samsang la be nga korang la hyo chen bo yin ban do ga he kha ji duba la hyo chen bo yin ban do ji ta ti gang la ko ji area chama this mandawan do ji be ti gang controversy do wa ji duba da nga ni bo this mandawan do ma bo yo sarwa tini ni tini ji ngone ramba shin tu ji 두가네 지는 아들 냠내 마도 거다 칸디스 좀 반도고 봐. 대가는 이게 점도 뜻을 배 자진 뭐 칸디 임바. 다 칸디 지는 배 마세비다 고 갈세 그래. 나서 깡속 라고 와. 칸디지 뭐네 담주고 다고 잡아도 이제 소 그랬어. 루트로 오지.
그래디 아티샤.
같이 모르겠어.
So actually, prior to Atisha's arrival in Tibet, there was already a lot of Dharma being practiced throughout Tibet, but there were some big divisions. There were some who were practicing like mainly focused on the Dharma, with regard, mainly focused on, for instance, the Vinaya practices. And then there were others who were practicing Tantra, but there was some division and some disagreement with regard to the proper way to practice Dharma. And so Atisha really was credited with kind of mending these misunderstandings and by teaching the progressive stages of the path, so that they could, were understood in such a way, like the relationship between the Vinaya as the foundation and then the progressive stages of the path all the way through the stages of Tantra and so forth. And also he really emphasized the importance of refuge, the practice of refuge. And so in this way, Atisha really demonstrated tremendous kindness to Tibet, and it was, due to his presence there and his teachings, really the precious Dharma is what it is to today, complete with all of the stages.
다 디네치도 좀좀 말마 탁선 채노 대신 dur지 얘네 세히 대통 착전초 총원 접지 큐크 뉴스 번조제스 zonda tame ketan hingirwada amarba ta tene melada da ti nga zu chamin chingris tene ta ti hyugla Jikan want to karma banchano, Kajam Dundulon, say him, Chuku demi, you matone, nonsense tarriching banzo jigs.
So then it says, the supreme siddhas, Marpa, Mela, and Gampopa think of me. Look upon me from the Vajra realm of great bliss. May I attain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra, bliss and emptiness, and awaken Dharmakaya in my heart. So, of course, this is referring to our lineage fathers, the great masters Marpa, Milarepa, and Gampopa. So you're all well familiar with their stories. And then the next line says, Karmapa, Lord of the world, think of me. Look upon me from the space where all beings everywhere are tamed. Help me to realize that all dharmas are insubstantial and illusory. Make appearance and mind dawn as the three kayas.
Tenekaju Chegi Chungin Cheno, Rana Tape in the Sehe, Nekahi, and Tuba Sane, Yamdon Tarichin banzo jigs.
So then it says, Kagyus of the four great and lesser lineages, think of me. Look upon me from the realm of sacred outlook. Help me to clear away confusion in the fourth moment and complete my experience and realization.
In the Jeta Gaju Chegi Chungin Cheno, Sayade, Jeta, Sek the Kanichumbre Skuvina, Karmakaju Korana la, Tiduta Korajik Loma, Ajik Che Hedan, Chungji lo, Tindichi, Karmakaju Knala, Karmakaju Rana la, Tinichumbres.
So, Cheji Dang Chungji.
Yina Yanta Dilla, Tana Che Chungi Sayade, Disco. 다 그런 게 책 중사대까지 제기 중지 써야 돼. karmakaji 나 총벌이 되나야. 단다 배주체야. 늘 배주체야 돼. 그 karmakaji랑 마인바 배나 타보는 뭐지. 로마 헬라테네. 지 체헤서야 제단테네. 포모투비 로마다 조 지우와 텔레 총지 써야 제가 이렇게 잡여서레스.
So here, as it refers to the four great Kagyu and 8 lesser Kagyu lineages, so often this distinction is actually made, from the perspective of the Karma Kagyu. So the Karma Kagyu, like from that perspective, then there are the four great Kagyu lineages and the lesser 8.
Four pennacha four cornersta disable ben karma patu som chimbe ke koji ta ko zo chimbo tang ben nga son disumilanda wina jizumile klomala kachen he sa ya yong do wa tena yitene je koran klomala be je ta chimbo he tang chungji sa ya ji tindi lab gyo
Oh, okay.
sai te tine chungbre ina tandan de hi ti ko kha na ji jab yo wa insa restan de hi din di tonda here a little bit different.
Okay. So often, from the perspective of the Karma Kagyu tradition, the four great Kagyu lineages are referring to like the four great disciples of the Karmapa, Dusum Kimba, the first Karmapa, and then the 8 lesser, which the lineages that are connected from his 8 lesser disciples. So the 4 kind of heart sons, and then the 8 close sons, and then sort of the lineages as they relate to the students of the Karmapa. But so from the Karma Kagyu, so from the perspective of the Karma Kagyu, but here actually the explanation is a little bit different.
Like that here means.
So this is referring to the 4 great and 8 lesser lineages from the perspective of like Gampopa. So from the 4 heart sons of Gampopa, Ribe, and then the 8.
These kind of divisions here is the the gumbo bus, the four disciple, they call four.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the promoter bus, the man, the disciple, the eight disciples.
8 disciples
So
of
that is called
Padma
eight branch. So
which then became like the 8 lineages, right? The 8
so that's I
branches.
think talking about here. So
Mm-hmm.
so jatang da tindu da jatang da the gamboba chamin chengi yori tindu da jatang gamboba de zo koran kadamba keba yimba da jatang gamboba koran da ji repeat ne ngalan keba 대가 나이 주주 리미 땐 랭겐지 차디 요리 대가 나이 직매 지 다도 개발이 되는데 다 저거 같은 거죠 참래 같은 거죠 게제디 총의 자벨라마 세야디 지 고지 여기라 직다 담보 로도 넘바 히네 지지 직다 차조 그 파드 티장에들라 양 자벨라마 양 차기 요리 양 참래 가지고 지 뭐니 지 랜더 지 기배 뭐 제가 뭐메 기배 레탕 제가 효침부 요월라 때네 드네 지 탐에 고지 자벨라마티 자야 드네 용도 빼는 자샤위나 지 감보발라 사지 조연 휴요래 다 조고 까담 기배데 참마 톱이요래 이내야 타만 엄마데 다지 코란게 니마지 아 딱고 레인지와 감보발테네 뭐 참디디베 까로 워라테네 지 무지 깨잘라고 요르와 오 당가 종원이 지츠밀라 세야 탈란 로그요스 지츠밀라 추슈간 로보사레 람테니 지 코란스 깨자만 몰라고 그러와 당원에 전에 지츠밀라 세야 다베 자워 자친부레스 드니제 고도 감보바 코란 대가나 지츠밀레킨 sen 투바 잠지 오 당가 인체 미니컬 로고도 삼지테네 그 대화랑 코란테니 지츠밀라 제간 로요르와 제가 로요레 되는데 지츠밀란지 지츠밀란지네 되네 지금은 단위 지츠밀레 까울라되네 추슈네 제 ቋ음지 자용도 지 감보바케 지금은 데모 타다 투좀 되는 챙기도 와 양용 챙기도 와 이는 양용 챙기 요래 디나더니 야지 지츠밀레 라마베 상지 니스미 바트니 제 하고는 되네 야 양용도서야 휴음베 까울라 당가 냠냠들이 도울라도 다데 상모야 말이 냠바야 말이 다 저런 공부하고 스킵 going 라지테 다 텐데지 타마디 다지 자벨라마 세너리 텔라테니 감보바 자벨라마디 테니 지즈미라 차요로와 오다 디인디 양코 자벨라마 세야데고 도탄 제기 토네 트리 용구도와
공타디 밀라네 민가 토네 드네 데 마옹 바 두숭게 디기 야보코 마송 드네
다 지타코라 냠노 제기로 하베 다 냠노 빼 제거리 지금 데비지 마옹발라 카르 용구요와 테니 지다 냠뇽다 암다 제기로 오네
두숭 통투바 킨투바
제기리 티나야 되네 다 딩가 냠뇽들이 제송을 되지 심을려 다 저런디 다 상보야 말이 냠마야 말이 다 저런 공자 그래스
So you all are familiar with the life story of Gampopa. And Gampopa was incredibly intelligent. He also studied a great deal in the Kadampa tradition and had reached, already a very high level of accomplishment prior to meeting Milarepa. He was also well versed in the 5 sciences and was had been exposed to many different teachers and traditions. So he really, in a way, was a holder of multiple traditions, or like a real kind of Rime master. And he was also he was really knew a great deal about medicine. He started off as a doctor, and he was also really skilled or knowledgeable with regard to astrology. So like astrology and astrology. And so so when we talk, there were some questions before about identifying who or how to identify one's root lama. And so there are different ways, different kind of ways in which one's root lama or teacher may present themselves. So sometimes, for instance, the root lama is simply the one with whom one has really stayed the course of the entirety of the path. So first, the teacher, teaches you the foundational teachings on the four thoughts that turn the mind, and so on and so forth. And as you progress through the different levels of training, then you receive all of the different levels of teachings from that kind teacher. And that is one way in which all the way up to Mahamudra or Dzogchen. And so that one would be considered a root teacher, a root guru. But then sometimes there are these conditions where it is clear that there's some sort of deep bond from former lives. So where there really is sort of on the part of the student, there's a feeling that's really unique, with regard to that teacher. Sometimes even just hearing their name can cause like a strong feeling of devotion to arise, or to cause one to have goosebumps and one's hair stands on end and so forth. So for instance, Gampopa, this was the nature of his relationship with Milarepa. And he had, prior to that, he had studied a great deal with other masters, and had progressed quite a bit already on the path of practice. And then at one point he was staying in retreat, and he overheard some people talking, and they were talking sort of next to his retreat place. And they were on pilgrimage, and they were discussing Milarepa, and they were saying, oh, really there's no one like him. He is so extraordinary. We really, that's my greatest wish, is to receive teachings from the master Milarepa. And so they were discussing Milarepa and his qualities. And then Gampopa, who was right nearby overhearing this, merely hearing Milarepa's name, this extraordinary feeling overwhelmed him, and he thought, that's it, I have to go find Milarepa. I must see this teacher. This was the first time he had heard of him. And so then he set out on his way to find Milarepa, and when he met Milarepa, he received the pith instructions, and he went into retreat, or he meditated and gave rise to all sorts of really incredible experiences. And then when he explained these experiences to Milarepa, such as having unhindered perception of the three times, for instance, being able to see unimpededly into the future, into the past, and so forth. And Milarepa said to him, neither good, not good or bad, just keep going, just keep practicing. So he didn't give him sort of any affirmation or any his only response was just to keep practicing. And so this, and he did, of course, Gampopa did, until he really manifested the final fruition. And Milarepa, of course, was his root guru.
다 텐디 티 슈글라 다 등가 좋단다 데라 타보름 보치 로마 세야틀라 다 제단 칸반 미히에 라 톱톱 칸반 미히에 칸바로 다 칸라고 요사리 다 데디 감부바 케다 휴자디 다 우노르 우당 쇼노 네디오르바 이나다 디 메시보 용사디 데네 톱톱 다 칸반 미히에 세야다 칸반 미히 세야다 수리세나 데네 달마 왕추 드니 파모토바 드니 투좀 쳔바 드니 옹공 수점 닝보스
Jamati kare
수점 닝보랍니다.
Sotram Ningpo.
김명이 토통 가만 미기라 그래서
And so Dapo Rinpoche or Gampopa had four main disciples, four main heart disciples that were referred to as the four Kampas, the four Kampa students. And so Gampopa actually he resided mainly in sort of like the southern central Tibet. Yeah, southern central Tibet. And so there were four like kind of yogis or mahasiddhas, for accomplished masters who became his main disciples, and these were and they were all from Kam, so they were all the four Kampas. So these were Dharma.
So Kam thì chỉ thằng Kam thì that the area đó region gì đó East region đó chả đi.
So Kam is the name. It's a name of a region, a very big region in Tibet, but it's mainly Eastern Tibet. So Kam is referring to Eastern Tibet. So these four main Kampas were Dharma Wangchuk, Pagmodrupa, Dusum Kimba or Karmapa Dusum Kimba, and Tsotum Ningpo.
Teni 다 gambo teni chushu, teni chushu ne teni konso pe, 다 gom jam tuba to yosarawa, takla gambo la. Ten tuba to ne 다 konso tutop chiri teni tutop konso 다 teni je konso da jik 다 ko teni de konso 다 chanda rana ko kata ja tedi ja sambato ko karana tongu yorwa, moto kariya puya na tegi wale, teni tiga nangi 다 jik. 다고 그 유라 고양 창세다 빙아 비언도로 또 매워 여러와 근데 그 창으로 근데 동구여서와 뭐뭐 저 동네 다트 스토리로 와
Okay, maybe Chinang educate us kung sare di nga di Noria tes Chinang yo.
다트 하고 송겠다 겐테 콘소 창모 뭐 동구여래라 다트 담보들 남들
So Kung Soji. Okay, so Dangpo the
다 곰지야 근데 트랍 곰지야 요라 제탄 삼광라 되고 지로 와
Tagla Gombala.
달라 gambola
Gambo or Gomba? Gambo, Roa.
달라 gambo sen다 area name gombe area
So all of these four disciples, they, received Tibetan instructions from Gampopa, and they meditated. They meditated in the area over quite a long, for a long time, in the area of Taglagambo, and they, they really became very accomplished, and they were known actually for drinking. They drank a lot of beer.
yes
So, and they they were so they I guess they
okay so that's so actually this this Tsamba retreat tent. So retreat tent is mainly the support village. So in the Gambo area,
the villagers support them,
right? So the villages, this area is a lot of barley, and also the Thala-Gambo area is also warm weather, very warm. So that has no Coca-Cola. So so people like cold drink is like a chan. We call chan, so the beer.
So it's not actually beer.
Like
it's like
beer.
A barley, fermented barley beverage.
Yeah, so this liquor bit stronger than we call what is kombucha, but kind of similar.
Stronger than kombucha, but sort of similar.
Right, and then probably these villagers, so these yogis, retreats, so probably are many giving to him. So that's basically a drink, beer. So this actually, I went to there. So this retreat place and the monastery is not too far. So then in the monastery, not allowed to drink beer or chan, right? The Tibet called chan, like beer. So then one day, the monastery disciplinarian, he saw all the retreat tent during the chan. So then he really upset. So then these four Kambas he kicked out. So you
So
said,
they kicked out the four kampas were kicked out. Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So the story is then that day is all the birds. So the Gamboba is top of the mountain, so just have to leave. Then they just have to walk in the dawn. I think very far away. So they sort of like total south. So all the birds, every small birds or big birds in flying the south, just leaving from the Gamboba area.
Uh-huh.
So then also Gamboba said, what is happening? This he's a kind of surprised. What you did, so Gamboba, maybe he's staying in the monastery. So what happening? Is something happening? This is kind of really strange today. What is going on? So then this, I think, monastery, not probably disciplinarian, but somebody, his attendants, nothing happened, nothing, But this morning is disciplinarian very angry. So all the, these four canvas, they drink chang. So actually this, the disciplinarians, he kick out all the canvas. So then said, no, that's not right. So then he said, okay, I want to go. Where's the lot? So
Where did they go?
there
Yeah.
you go. Then he just conducts Gambo, but maybe look up or he has the
A cane.
cane. So then this one rock, I was there, I saw this rock, and then this kind of like mountain, stages, right? So down below there's rock. And then the melody Gamboba song to the four disciples.
He sang a song to the four
They called
disciples.
Chua Yashongor. So
Mhm.
Chua Yashongor means the rivers
The
river in
the
song.
song that reversed the flow of the river. River.
Mhm. So that means don't leave the Gamboba. So you come back. You have to stay in the Gamboba area. So the Gamboba, he footprint and he put in the cane in the rock.
His there's both his footprint and the print from his cane are still there to this day in the rock. They
Mhm.
can be seen.
And also, then the four canvas, they returned. So yes, he have to listen, his root master. So then he sort of tend to understanding the reply to Gamboba. So the four canvas, they put the footprint in the rock. So that's why Ikaju is kind of very, very kind of or popular or like kind of really show to how the practice. So that's then this. So this really special. Actually, if you want, they called. I think a Chuya Ngor. I think Malaripas. I Gambuba Namta. I think so.
So this very special song, the song that reverses the flow of the river, is probably in the life story of Gampopa.
And also that time is Yalung River. The Burma Pudara. So Burma Pudara is the
Brahmaputra. Mm-hmm.
in the river down below the Gamoba going to the sort of like southeast. But the rivers too, not only like for canvas, I had the rivers just they stop or something, this during the Gamoba song, song.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so Kamba. So then since then, so the Barron Tarma Wanchu
Mm-hmm.
has this Barron Kaju, the one Kaju,
Mm-hmm.
and also this Karmaba Tuzum Chemba
Mm-hmm.
is Karma Kaju, and then they become the Palmotuba. The region of Gamboba is Palmotuba.
Mm-hmm.
So Palmotuba is not disabled. So Palmotuba is called Paltukaju.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tsutem Nyingbo is Sepa Gaju. So they call this four Gajus.
Mm-hmm. Sepa.
Sepa Gaju. Sepa Gaju.
Mm-hmm. Sepa Kagi.
Mhm.
So then the four great lineages that are being referred to here are the four great lineages that come from these four Kampa disciples. So the first one being the Baram Kagyu. So that was Dharma Wangchu, Dharma Wangchu. So from him, then the Baram Kagyu developed, and then Karmapa Dusum Kimpa, of course, then became the founder of the Karma Kagyu school. And then Pagmodrupa, whose disciples really filled kind of that most of the region there around Gampopa's monastery, the most of the region. No. So most of the region, what?
Gambobas region Madatirwati.
Oh, regent.
Yes.
Sorry, not region. So the main sort of regent or predecessor of Gampopa was Pagmodrupa, who then from him we have the Pagdru Kagyu, and then from Sotrim Ningbo we have the Sepal Kagyu.
Then that issue lang as that which G say Labuori in a pomo or Trebeke Lomata Jatan, attendant de la co Korankaju Tinichung, the Kaju G no Chung, in a Yazo Karsena Kajute da some Jimmy Chap Beketini, Trotop Ngabjat in the Yore, Sungdua Tropatoba. Pomo Trebecoloma. What in the kitchen, Loma Tani de Bayori, Sinata, Tina, Pomo Trebeketa, Yarsa, Mus go Hawati, Tinitanga, some Junga Juanjikazungo, Chadiores.
So then from Pagmodrupa, then we have from his disciples the 8 subsidiary Kagyu lineages that then arose or developed. And Pagmodrupa himself had so many extraordinary disciples. And among those disciples, there were the 500 like really highly accomplished Mahasiddhas, or great masters, accomplished masters. And then in addition to those 500 accomplished masters, there were really countless disciples who develop great qualities. But among all of these, his main predecessor, or his closest heart son or disciple, was Lord Jigten Sumgun.
Ta penanjik dan di gaju tin de wishina ji jikan sungong ka kamda woji dan nyamanda ngeche ji chung stanga so duling chi gode ta duling chi adi ji digun gaju ke duling do marwa ta digun gaju yang mare ta so ji la namba yang mare tene ji ta da jana la tin ke ta conference chimbo ji so so research the professor mambo jing zom ji tene tene 좀버리 튼 좀도 tene 직 상제 택된 바 다네 직 상제 그 tene 티슈라 로드업가 티슈라 tene 저번지 간송공 강라다 직 남백 population 세리 다직 겐두기 데 마셔데 총브레라고도 tene 다 제타왕 가서 단다다 야라 당로 주디소 나라 직 오만도 임비나 지금 지공지도 저참만 지공 벤 참장에 당참만 지 공반도 지공 탐바세야 같은데
레 탐체
지공 그래 인다 틴도리 인다 디 망볼랍디나
탕상마
지공 기억인도다 탕강디는 올라고.
So Rila Yogi or Tangla Gomba or
Yeah.
Okay. And so actually, maybe a couple of years ago, there was a big conference in China. It wasn't even like, it had nothing to do actually with the Drikung Kagyu. It was, and not even like particularly Buddhist, but it was sort of dealing with Buddhist studies. So it was this conference with many professors and historians
All the world.
from all over the world, and they were discussing, what were the periods where the Buddhist teachings were most prominent, or where like had the spread of the Buddhist teachings was most extensive during which periods. And the times that they came up with, or that they decided upon, were, of course, during the time of the Buddha, the life of the Buddha himself, during the time of and due to the influence of Nagarjuna, and during the time of and due to the influence of Jigten Sumgun in Tibet. And so during this time and during this period in Tibet, really it was like the greatest gathering of Sangha, like that, the greatest population of practitioners populated, or like that was kind of a period where it was really phenomenal how many practitioners and retreatants filled the entire region. And it was said that all of the hillsides, all of the mountainsides are drikung, and all of the valleys are drikung. So like all of the mountains were just completely populated with retreat huts and yogis doing retreat, and the valleys were just completely filled up with like monasteries and hermitages. Rebe.
Tinida Tidu Karslabgursna, Jatan, west side no Chivina, ta Jigazum Wonkitene, Tinga in the town, Lagdua, not Abja Sayati, Kanrambochi, Tingarwa,
50,000.
Zarel Tambari, 50,000, Lapchil Tambari, 50,000, Zarel Tambari, Lagoteni Tajik, such a jig Zar Kanrimidua, Benacha Shavina, Tana Kanrisea, far west Chadiota, Benacha Tanajik, Pakistan Kita, Pete Jamdo Changori, West Tibet River. Tinita Lapchit Tana Nepal Sachata, Center of Chad, Nepal Chol, Jimano. Tinita Zariti far away. Tandata Terawa, Matum Burma. Burmese Jabla, Chagiorwa.
So the Chok the guys in a Gangri West, then Sari Kapar.
Tachimadorwa.
Ochimayang.
Lapchit Chimano, Nepal,
then it's Sari Kapar.
That was very east.
Oh, okay.
Tindo Chadi. Tindi that Tindijik, Samala Corona, Tindijik, and some Dane, Tindijik Chadwa.
Also, there were many Drikung Kagyu yogis who spread out like all over the land. It was said that that Jigten Sumgun sent Rebe Jigten Sumgun, or no, or that there were 50,000 practitioners or yogis who were sent to Mount Kailash, 50,000 who were sent to Tsari, and 50,000 who were sent to Lapchi. So Mount Kailash is like in the far west, kind of near Pakistan. And then Lapchi is a more central, it's right on the border with Nepal. And then Sari is in the far east, almost near to Burma. And so in all of these different regions, they just became filled with Drikung Kagyu practitioners.
That the that in those that Jatan Lodu, that Mambo Hudina, Kobe Mambo Yoris.
But there are so many different stories that could be told. We could there's a lot there. That could be discussed.
Tene te chu te list yo te kaju list.
De kikorlajesha de tingmajima yini yang chirang rimba shindu lapna de gro.
Ota tende ta jitanga so di kaju che she mata chongji dojina. Tene joban jikten sumgon ke tene dan digun ka ju re
Mm.
tene daglong thangba sa da daglong thangba te gung no be chen boin sa
There's
re
a kale tene
daglong thangba
tamba
thangba la daglong ka ju
taglang.
thangba tene rongong jatsa la
Jatsa.
la top ka ju
Kare.
top ka ju top ka ju
Trupu.
Chirgom
Chergom.
la shuksep ka ju
Shuksep. Titso ko mamyong kemsa.
tene lingre la tene dan do ka ju
Lingri. Lingri.
lingre
Lingri. Drukpa kagyu. So of these 8 disciples of Pagmodrupa, there came the 8 subsidiary Kagyu lineages. So with Lord Jigten Sumgan, of course, we have the Drukung Kagyu tradition. With Taglong Tangpa, the Taglang Kagyu developed the Sik Norna Danila. Okay. With Dongong Gyatsa, there arose the Drupu Kagyu, Trupu Kagyu. And with Shirabishi, the Martang Kagyu, or Martsang Kagyu, sorry. With Yishit Sik, we have the Yarpa Kagyu, Yarpa. With Yeshe Singe, Yalang Kagyu? Yasang Kagyu, sorry. Nimbu Chergum is the Shuksep Kagyu. And Lingri, from Lingri, we have the Drukpa Kagyu.
ina da tanda jig da tangi konto jig gamboba kiloma ina re tene jig pamo tubi kiloma ina re da tanda benna cha xawi na mabon ka ju karma ka ju
Barom karma
karma ka ju da tsepa ka ju shira ya samare tene 다 가지 되는 지금 가지 요리 다음 가지 요리
Drukung Dang
다글롱 다 드소 다이는 참 말람 득사 인다 간다 디나나 다 가지 뭐지 요 말이 스탠다 다 칼레 메바 차선로와 야장 가지 세야 라고 당 테네
Yarasang.
다 참모지 신고녀 보레 정도 정말 다 간다 가지 가시 다요 말이 스탠다
So of these 4 great lineages and 8 subsidiary lineages of the Kagyu tradition, so stemming from the 4 disciples of Gampopa and the 8 disciples of Pagmodrupa, a lot of these Kagyu traditions have actually pretty much disappeared. So they're no longer they're no longer like functioning or practicing lineages, but among them, of course, the Baram Kagyu still survive, the Karma Kagyu still survives, the Tsepal Kagyu still survives, the Drikung Kagyu, of course, still survives, the Taglong Kagyu still survives, and of course the Drukpa Kagyu, Rawa. And but among them, many of them have already actually sort of died off. The tradition hasn't been continued to carry on.
다 디슈라 지주 코만 남은 채노 스타트 지주 코만 남은 채노 근데 열미 동네 세계 남도 따곰 조som 되네 사밀 남쪽 로번 조지 에스
The Sakya. So then the next verse says, five Sakya forefathers, noble ones, think of me, look upon me from the realm of inseparable samsara and nirvana. Help me to connect a pure view, meditation, and action, and to tread the supreme secret path.
다 대인도 이제 당사자 고만 남가 세야되다. 인사리 대인도 다 지주 고만 남가 라고래. 이나 칸다 다 사자들라 당보다 사진 공간 인부. 되니 님바데 소남제모.
Sunam
탁바지안세. 공가지안세. 조장 파파.
Chuja Papa. So these five great Sakya forefathers are referring to the great Kunga Ningpo, Sonam Tsemo, Drakpa Gyaltsen, Kunga Gyaltsen, Ribe, and Chugya Papa.
조장 파파.
Chuja Papa.
다 디슈라 가주지 니즈 고만나 문제노스다. 냐미 향바 가주 인체노 남다 산제 행네 세해.
Shangba Kagi La Mazonga, Tizo J Nangla, La Mazonge.
What?
Tizo J Nangla, Shangba Kagi La Zonge.
요말
Ah, yeah, okay.
상조지 소케 냐미 향바 가주 인체노 남다 산제 행네 세해. 탑도 냠네 수히 세네 물로 송tunju 물로 송ju 니 반조지. 에스
Oh, got the ni lo imbe or chick. Okay. And then it says, incomparable Shankbakagyu, think of me. Look upon me from the completely pure Buddha realm. Help me to master the practices of method and freedom and attain the paths of non-learning and integration.
다지탕가 저디 가주텔라 니로지 샤기도와 가주 니로지 샤기요레 가주데 갈세나 다 타포 가주 세야지 당 향바 가주 세야 니 샤기요레스 텐데 베나 다 타포 가주 당일랍 자로 다 텐데 타포를 뭐 총마다 타포 가주레스 다 테네 다 향바 가주 세야데 다 저도 충분 내줄 세야지 정도와 거랑 접접지 충분 내줄 충분 내줄
Tini sugi loma kampopa.
다 못해라.
Okay. So then we also actually further have the divisions of the two Kagyu lineages of the Dakpo Kagyu and the Shangpa Kagyu. So the Dakpo Kagyu coming, of course, from Dakpo Rinpoche or Gampopa, and the Shangpa Kagyu coming from Drupto Chungbor Naljor.
디다 충분 내줄 때 공화 제가 좋다 말바 나기테네 코란야 피율란도 야갈란도 딘디치네테네 지타다까지 베나다 지 데로당 나루주 데와테 요사리 텐데 데로당 나루주 데와테 베나차샤베나 코란 그 자베 라마데 느구마 당테네 다나다 베제메나 나로클로마 나로클라마라와 칸토 페제 수가스디스야다 간다 드조인
나로게 라마 수가스리
오다 드조인 코랑 송도와 아다 간다리야 코랑다 텐디지지 야알런도 지드네 야알추 조테트가 나이다 조테리샤 코랑게 사람 나로추루 조레도와 텐디지지 총대와들라 지 양지 그다 감보바다 테야 말바는 마주베 케테네 코랑 아지 카토 코로나 야간도 남아 주대자들라 향박까지 슬랍 야사레스.
So Chungbor Naljor, like Marpa, traveled to Nepal and India. And he also carries the lineage of Tilopa and Naropa. His main teachers, his root guru was said to be Niguma. And also one of Naropa's lamas or teachers, Sukasiddhi. So he actually traveling to India, he also entered the profound path of Mahamudra and the six yogas, and practiced practice and accomplish the six yogas, and also then carry that lineage, and that lineage then is maintained in the Shangpa Kagyu tradition.
Tene tukchen tanghong jerbon chenos, zolmi tukje long seikin, demi tokpa toryo chobne, chansa rangwan do wan zoje is.
So then the next verse says, Great Siddha, Tang Tong Gyalpo, think of me, look upon me from the realm of effortless compassion. Help me to master the deliberate behavior which realizes insubstantiality. Help me to gather control in prana and mind.
Ta tanghong jerbo seya de jikta,
Tang Tong.
tukchen tanghong jerbo wa. Di ta mixi huji po nana chongbres. Ta di indu jitanga zo te yorda, Tibetan Buddhism senalida, jitan Buddhism la koji the monastery system ro lama travik system ro ji ko kono ji lama da pa gomba la de nyamne chi tindi ra chi a ji da yung gu yor wa yin na ya ji chupchen ta no yer wo de ko ji tindi ge sam ji me che wi ki da ji chotop pem me si wi ki da chamba chotop tindi ji ri yin na ya ko ji da tindi ki chocho zam ma yin be ki ji ken de be tabla
Jikten Debe Top. Dini the Tibetan monastic system shira yapo koma song ko
namju no ina jitan la matawa chamba ji ko da ji gomba la di tene ko ti system ro rogrwa ji nga som mama ji le ka le ji ka se chong da ja tini ke ko le ka leg marwa da tini ma ka le ka le ngrwa
okay
gomba ji dim ko ba pang go re tum dem go re slab grwa ha da
So then the master Tangtong Gyalpo also was a great accomplished master or Siddha, Mahasiddha, who really has a sort of a special place in the hearts of Tibetans. So he's considered as very special throughout Tibet. And he really, so up till his time, actually there are, generally speaking, in Tibet, there's the kind of monastic system. The practice of Buddhism is really governed by the monastic systems in Tibet. So those who practiced the Dharma, became monastics, entered the monastery, and really, kind of gave up a worldly life entirely, is sort of the way that it is traditionally done. But Drupchen Tangtong Gyalpo actually was known for sort of establishing a system of Tibetan or of Buddhist practice within the world, without completely sort of giving up worldly activities, but really, practicing and engaging, a system for engaging in the world in a way that accords with life, Dharma, sort of establishing a dharmic way of life.
Tinta chon chupchen tangno je bo ko chungsa de ta tanda peche ta zang ro la go da zang de up ta apar Tibet no de de be na ka zang ga je se la le na la je sing chu tong ming chungsa da ta ni wo res
So Tangtong Gyalpo's birthplace was in Sang, Upper Tibet, actually fairly close to the same place where the author of the 37 Bodhisattva practices was born, Gyaltseng Muchu Togme.
Tene Koran kita yabla tene dorji jansa labdo.
His father was Dorje Gyaltsen.
Amate tene lamo. Jagar lamo labdo. The cancer or Jagar in India or Indi lamo.
And his mother was Jagar Lamo, which actually means Indian goddess.
Tene ta jitan peche mene ko jiktong sumja chukchus nang tung yasaris.
Chiktong.
Sumja.
Sumja.
Chukchu.
So he was born around the year 1360, like in the Western calendar, right?
Tene ta tene Koran ken samdi wa tende zam mazi beke.
1385, but 1360.
Tene ta karchi yorsina ji ta manso la data peda lamga soya kango zo bres. Tiga na yike samba jaya kango zo bres.
So dangpo di lamgat.
Yeah.
Lamgat.
Tene samba. Tene tre soya kango zo lo tre.
And he was also really famous for founding traditions or establishing methods for building like thoroughfares or highways, kind of, or main roads.
Yes,
roads. Okay, just roads, and bridges, iron bridges, right, or chaki samba, or just bridges, and boats.
Tene ta te lujuji do karsanda Koran thambo ji ta namjun do ina ji gomba thasang ina ri khande ina ji ta mangso offering do ji chi xiao jon do ji da donation do ji da tindi ke kangla ji ta gomba ja ina ri te chi yor ba tindi do mayin ba tene ta thambo Koran ke ji lujuji do tene thambo je bo Koran ke tene thomba na la mambo thomba ji ndo be ka la tene 부모 부인이 통발에서 부모님. 되네 배 마시비게다 거나 배 년지고. 되네 배 직도sol라고 나 년보. 어다 텐데로 치리테네 야단 니니 볼라 믹스 휴스도 스타 텐데 삼지 되네 부모님 보대 되네 고 지금 상태리야 때로치라. 때로치람 되네 다든 한목은 도가르서야 되네 조그레 스타트나 조가르선 디가블라다 지금 도가르로 텐데 오늘 지는 공부 타서나 되니다 지 뇌에 나라 해탑 조금 말에 틀라고 여러
그래.
안타테 몰라니서
And so the way that all of his the funding for all of his projects actually was really quite unique. It wasn't like sort of in the ordinary style of, say, ordinarily, for instance, in the case of like the monasteries, it is the lay people or the people of the region who support the monastery through making offerings and so forth. So in the case of Tangtong Gyalpo, this wasn't how he funded his projects. Actually, he ended up, it all sort of started with one time when he was in a particular village and he came across these two young girls who were really kind of unique and very special. They were really beautiful, and they had just really pleasant voices. They had a real their voices were very beautiful. Their voice, right? And so he thought they were really special, and he asked their family if they would give them permission to go, with Tangtong Gyalpo, and so the family gave him the girls permission, and or gave them to Tangtong Gyalpo, and they started like kind of like a theater troupe, like a drama kind of group where they did performances. They put on performances of Tibetan opera.
다 뒤에 다 된다지 도가 라마 만니세야 하모세야다 그 형들이 차비 소지다 라마 만세야도 조들이 라마 만세야디 고지 라마로 타고 요르되네 지 카르마 레칸디 요와 티가나 추칸디 지고와 상보 상주 칸디 지고와 텐디지 드네 다 대가 나이지 다 고베 기님부 텐디기 지 클라모 대가 나이게다 남탈 테네 차지 테네 디기지다 단단한 이고지 오네 고 차치고 요사로 못들래 못들래 그 배야 두고 요사 텐디 두지 테네 다티디 짜도 뱀마시비게 공침보로 짜소야라 갈래 가보리 테네 개침보리 어다 텐디니 다 드솔레베 지 소지킨 계시다 작 삼바 라소바 테네 조브레스
And yet this opera had a very, so it was like a drama, an entertaining drama, but it actually was all about the Dharma. So it was very kind of instructed in the, how to engage in proper conduct, how to be a good person, how karma cause and effect works. Also some of the namtar.
남다르세는 다 히스토리로 가서 나사세요 안다고다 가지요르와 나고서 뭐 이제 땅때
the Dharma history. So also the Dharma, the life stories of Dharma masters and the history of sort of historical performances, and then in this way they would put on these performances, and then they would receive the offerings from the people, through this vehicle of entertainment. So they would actually gather money in this way, because the iron for these bridges was actually extremely expensive. It was very expensive. So in this way,
labor. Yeah, so na be lekaleni so yorwa.
Oh, and the labor, and the metal, or the iron itself was very expensive, and so in this way
also this iron that time they produced the iron too. So
okay,
so machine.
So it was hand produced. It wasn't as though they had machinery to mass produce it, and so it was very labor intensive and very expensive. But they were able to fund these projects through these productions that they would put on.
오다 대가나 이게 지 근데 매 단다 이게 단 top regards 해야 요다 top regards 해야 되고 맨 짜진 보러 와 top regards top regar 보러
rilbu 두칼
저소로 이미나 되네 이제 원에 단에 지야 나타 참마 타도 베다 나타 찍면도 마인바 지 카리나 지 타나가서 precious pel라고도 타나기 되네 지 수보 참마 패야 딘리케 코리아 키요레스
공소조요레.
Oh,
okay. And so then also Tang Tong Gyalpo made these very potent medicines, this very special medicinal pill, which is called Drukar Rubu, the white pill. Oh, sorry, Druptu Rubu. And it was like a white pill that cured all varieties of illness. So it was like a really very precious medicinal substance or pill.
제가 나기 때문에 당노절부터 오늘 법에나 멕시코에서 나서 제타 지랑소가 다 팀부하고 요래 법에나로 다 게로 닝마서 양도 지 요래 되네 지 라마몽본로 지 요러와 라마다 다 군라 몽보 요러와 이내양 그 당노절부터 믹스 요러와 그 메상지 기나라 칸반도 오자고나다 홍배 지남 첨보리라나 텔레 추로 칸 있는 요마르와 가지닝마 칸 요마레 되네 당노절부 군라 당보샤고야. 근데 메상도 오지 참상가서 되니지다 내가 유지로 가서 장사자 부품을 냠들이 공사 칸바서버지 난도 그러와. 어떤 도백가라 인치미니지 당노절부 군라지 고그레서야 근데 이게 포베지서 나온다 거지 추 자 마인 비킨 직탱이 나온다 빼지 가서 그래 Mina Kitchen with the Thatching with each other is.
So Tongtong Gyalpo is regarded with so much sort of trust and veneration in among Tibetans. So kind of irregardless of the Dharma in a way, you know, it's not so ordinarily, you know, people will have statues, you know, according to their tradition, like what, you know, if they're the Gelug will have, you know, certain statues, and the Nyingma households will have different statues, but everybody has a statue of Tongtong Gyalpo, because and in particular also he's associated with like particular things such as building a new house, Rebe. So for instance, if one builds a new house, then it's really
The first put this Tongtong statue.
yeah, the first thing that is done is that they put a statue of Tongtong Gyalpo there. Or for instance, especially for instance, after a couple has been married, before they enter their new home together, then they have a statue of Tongtong Gyalpo, Rebe. So in this way, you know, he's regarded as a real kind of source of reliance and protection kind of across the board, you know, for Tibetans and protect, and not just in the context of Dharma, but also in the context of worldly endeavors and protection.
Tentaci tang tangno jarbo tende za chenbo yinba tang tende tangno jarbo korang peche lo ja tang peche chubgis tende tobyo sares.
Lo Jia Dang Chuji.
Chubgis.
Chuji. And Tongtong Gyalpo himself also is said to have mastered the city of longevity. So he is said to have lived to be 114 years old.
제가 나 얘기 때문에 당노 jarbo te peche tanda xiangpa gaju isaya ta tangi xiangpa saya jiwa o xiangpa gaju kileni ji lo je chadi yo sares korang.
And he also particularly held, was one of the holders of the, or, you know, within the lineage of the Shangpa Kagyu. So here he is mentioned just after this line of venerating the masters of the Shangpa Kagyu.
오다 테네스 두스타 가서데 지수
다 받쳐도 저 살이로.
this no kusre.
대 직진한 다둥 눈다 좀만 제조로 와 다둥 mambola 요래.
We missed the laptop yorati to chen tong jo laptop.
Yeah.
Tong jo that project tamba sang cheno let up to be in the say you be chin up ning la hyone then the chuni chorban zu jis.
So then the next verse says, "Only Father Padamba Sanjay, think of me. Look upon me from the realm of the realization of the highest activity. May the blessings of your lineage enter my heart, and may conditions and coincidences arise in all directions." Maybe conditions and synchronicities arise in all directions.
Tenta jitang pa tamba sanji te jagar kutubtab jire, te jagar kutubtab te ta pok nala tene ajik tingma ni soms tene pebyo sari tingma soms che polo mambo sho tene polo be tene loma mambo chombares.
So Padamba Sanjay was a great Indian Mahasiddha, and he traveled to Tibet a number of times, 2 to 3 or more times. And he stayed for long periods in Tibet and had a great following of disciples.
So maybe we stop here. So we try to finish this Sunday, but I think not finished. So then, what is next week is?
So we have another. We had scheduled to do this in 3 sessions, but it looks like we're going about a page a day. So maybe we'll probably extend it. But we do have one scheduled for next week, which is the 27th.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Sunday.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine.
And so Rinpoche, there are a couple questions.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and the first question is from Janelle, and she says, in the opening prayers, when we say Vajra Samaya 3 times, where are the enlightened ones becoming present? Do they arrive at Rinpoche's teaching center, or to each of our mind streams individually, or to the electronics of the internet, or all of these places at the same? Thank you.
Individually, yes.
In one's own mind stream. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you. The next question is from Dao Rinchen, and it says he actually wanted to know what the line "and may auspicious coincidence arise in all directions." Could you explain that a little bit? What the meaning of that phrase is?
So dilla paramba sanje ge shologarwa te gande yana chikchina de kien dang chikchina tindra sungyu sare de buye la gande sungyu na injikela and may conditions and coincidences yini ang coincidence tesa sik kimsare injikela.
What is Patamba Sanji?
Paramba sanje ge de shologarna
Or lead up to being the
so de tama
Tender Chomi
tindra yusare tindra
Tender Chomi in Charwanzo Jigs. Tadi Jatanga to the Tender Chomi Senaji. Tender Chomi in Charwanzo Jigs, Tangazo Chinamdo Yuna. Chinam Yunatio, Charlie Yungri, Noble Yungri, the Tinde Maimba. Roa Chop Meva. Tindijil Charochi, Lavoda Chinap. Not to show you not any pay Samboji, Pardiol Yungrita, Charjibo Yungri Lam, the Charjibo Himba Yung Marwa. Tendo Maimba, Tenekoji, Chop Meva, Zimi was enough. Chita, Gahila Chilamjo, Gahila Chilamanju, Tindi Maimba. Kaduina, you there, what I would
they sick the guy in the NGK let's ignore the tender chome. Oh, Kimsa, the tender chome chickball log use Okay. So yeah, the Tibetan here actually says directionless. If you know the word tindrel in Tibetan, where the word for in Tibetan is tindrel, so it's actually directionless tindrel. And so tindrel is sometimes translated like it means like it's like in this case, I think it means like auspicious signs of interdependence. It's kind of like auspicious signs of interdependence. So here it's translated as conditions and coincidences arise in all directions. So yeah, it's like may signs of auspicious interdependence arise in all directions, or without any direction, meaning in the way that Drupal described it, without direction. Is it like they're like blessing and auspiciousness is directionless, like it's sort of without the boundaries of space and time. So you don't say like, oh, this blessing arises from over there, or that one arises from over here. It's not just like from the east or from the west, but without any real direction. It's just
direction the go mares. Directionless.
Yeah, so there's no directions. It's without direction. But that I pacher did sikti tindal yangi korla lagi zarwaga insina indicate titang tesakimsare conditions and coincidences arise in all directions. See chok sangmala di chindang tindal yapo jungwar sho drawa.
So this whatever blessings So not like we sometimes our blessing only come from the east, so not like that. And there's no directions, so they can come any directions, and also some able to receive or power or blessing is not like or some people get or some people not get, not like that. So every
all pervasive.
So
Good, thank you.
But I will say, I think coincidences is a strange choice of English terms, not commonly one we use to translate this word.
Steve Pressel would like to know if we have a statue of Tongtong Gyalpo at the center.
Yeah, I get the problem with the coincidence. I don't understand. I couldn't understand that sentence.
Right. I think this translation is, I don't know, interesting English.
Actually, I think synchronicity might be a better word, because Tyndrel often happens like synchronicity. It's like signs of auspicious interdependence is really literally what that is.
So I think we don't have the Tongtong Gyalpo statue at the center. Maybe we can COVID-19 gone, we can order more Tongtong Gyalpo statues. Okay.
So would tendril be like a fortunate circumstance we don't necessarily understand the causes for? So
yes,
it appears like a coincidence. We just don't understand the causes. Okay.
Right. So that's it.
I think that's it from the chat. Oh, here's another one from Claudia. Rinpoche, why between all different versions of this prayer did we choose this one?
Thế rồi ta chỉ thằng ngã ta chỉ thằng làm mấy giang bộ thì mong bộ chiếc đó rồi vậy nè có chiếc chỉ giang bộ đâu đó đi nào là ngã cho chỉ chủ lưu xe ta nằm dưới đâu nè ngã sang đừng cái chuyện rằng đông đại ăn đâu chỉ用过rồi因为呀天地满意吧可只đi nào là chỉ có chủ lưu tham mấy chỉ làm mà有chỉ đồ thì thiên địa chính này cũng sẽ lấy rằng chào rồi
Oh, the gayan sana de lama jangbu mambo yore, tene de patia yapo yore gayan sana de chulok sangma de nangla yore de gungkagyu rang mayamba la yembe. So well, it's actually it's a really wonderful version, and it is it isn't we don't it's nice because it really sort of encompasses many different traditions. So it's not just kind of specific to, say, the Drikung Kagyu lineage, but it really encompasses all of these important Dharma traditions with which we have connections. All of these are connected to our own tradition. And in particular, if you're wondering why we chose this translation, actually I asked Ani Samten Garchen Rinpoche's attendant what they use when Garchen Rinpoche teaches on calling the Lama from afar, and this is what she sent me.
Okay, I think that's it for the chat, and there's nothing on Facebook.
Okay, so now you can read this one. There, yeah, boy, yours. The general change on one the xiao the ko remit do the chat yours. Once in you can read this.
Oh, okay. So we can also. This is a Rime prayer, a non-sectarian prayer. The Jamgon Kontro or Jamyang Kinsey Wangpo. Jamyang Kinsey Wangpo. By Jamyang Kinsey Wangpo. Yeah. So it says, "The Flower of Faith, a prayer to the 25 founders of Buddha's teachings in Tibet," by Jamyang Kinsey Wangpo. Padma Sambhava, embodiment of all gurus, devas, and dakinis, great Kempo Shantarakshita and the Dharma King Trisong Detsen, Nupchin Sangye Yeshe and Nangrel Nime Oser, or Nangdrel, it should be Nime Oser. To you, the 5 pioneers of the Kama and Terma, we pray. Sachin Kunga Ningpo, who is Vajradhara in person, Sonam Tsemmo and Drakpa Gyaltsen, Sakya Pandita and Chogyal Pakpa, to you, the 5 founders of the Sakya order, we pray. Marpa Lodro, who is one with Hivadra, Great Milarepa, Peerless Gampopa, Karmapa, Dusum Kimba, and Sonam Drakpa, protector of beings, to you, the 5 founders of the Kagyu tradition, we pray. Glorious Atisha, the same as Buddha Amitabha, Dromtom Gyawe Jungne, and Chingawa Tsotrembar, Potawa Rinchinsel, and Pungchungwa Shunu Gyaltsen, to you, the Kadampas, 5 great spiritual guides, we pray. Venerable Tsongkhapa, who turns the wheel of Buddha's teaching, Gyaltsap, Lord of Dharma, and Kedrup Gelekpal, Gundun Drupa, and Panchen Chuki Gyaltsen, to you 5, the emanation of Manjushri and his heirs, we pray. Through the blessing of our reciting this prayer, may we and all others enjoy a long life without illness, and may our lives be meaningful and one with the Dharma. By following these supreme spiritual guides, masters of all traditions, may we quickly attain the perfect state of enlightenment. May those noble ones who uphold the nonpartisan teaching of Buddha live for hundreds of eons, and may their activities increase in all directions. May the Sangha increase, and may the study and practice of Buddha's teachings spread and grow. May the whole universe and its 3 worlds be flooded with the sunlight of auspiciousness. Inspired by a vision he had in a dream, the yogi Manju Gosha Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, one who is completely devoted to the non-sectarian Rime teaching of Buddha, composed this, May Virtue Abound.
Okay, so no short dedication. So this is, so non-sectary prayers. Mhm.
Yeah, we put a copy of that prayer in the chat, so if y'all want to download it, you can just click it there.
Great, thank you. So we can recite the dedication prayer on page 24 in the prayer book. By the virtues collected in the 3 times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drikungpa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. If it's okay, make a quick announcement about the upcoming Shamatha retreat. So I'll share the screen, everybody, so you get to see. We each year we do a retreat, a Shamatha retreat on New Year's Day. And this year, obviously, it'll be difficult to do it in person, but we will be doing it with Rinpoche in Virginia. We'll be leading it on New Year's Day, which this year falls on a Friday. And you can get more information on our website. That basically it'll be from, as you can see, from 11 to 5 p.m. And it'll be on Zoom and Facebook Live, like the rest of our teachings have been. And the schedule is going to be from 11 Eastern Standard Time to 5. And we'll have opening prayers and some instruction from Rinpoche, and then we'll do alternating sessions of meditation. We'll take an hour lunch at 1 p.m. and then return for alternating sessions of meditation from 2 to 4:30, and then some special dedication prayers to bring in the new year. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us via Gmail. And that's about it. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Damien.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, everyone. See you on Tuesday or Sunday.